Hi, everyone, again. I'm here with Jacqueline Rogers. She's the founder and CEO of the Athena Network. Hi, Jacqueline. How are you?
Hello, Duggan. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
No, I know. Appreciate the time. And I thought a good place to start would be just for you to tell everyone about the Athena Network, really, what the business is and what it does, and the problems you solve as a business, and anything else you want to say.
Sure. So the Athena Network is a business networking organization, a business membership organization, which was created to solve the problem of women not being able to get clients, referrals, contacts that they needed to be able to grow their business. So what we've done is create really simple business model. Obviously, there's lots behind it, but from the front end, and it gives women the opportunity to join our network and to be able to grow their own business. And they're networking in local environments, but we're also networking nationally and internationally as well.
And so Jacqueline, is the business itself, is it to set up networking groups and then manage and run those networking groups?
So the franchise business, so I was going right to the end result, wasn't I? So the franchise business is to be a franchisee of a territory, a defined area, postcode area, so that they would be running their own membership groups and setting those up in the particular specific region. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's great. So that makes sense. So it's basically the franchise business is an extension of what you set up originally. 18 years ago.
An exact replica of what we set up originally. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go back to originally then, and how long ago was that, Jacqueline, when you set up the Athena Network?
That was 2005. So I think we're 19. This is our 19th year of trading. So it was the end of 2005. That was very much wouldn't even call it a pilot model. It was just, let's see what would happen. Let's just invite a group of ladies to an event and see if they enjoy a format that we'd created at the time. And again, following a fairly simple structure, but for me, the important part was actually adding the training. So within all of our meetings, as well as giving all of the members, all the visitors even as well, the opportunity to tell everybody in the room who they are, what they do, what their call to action is, i.e. what kind of connections they're looking for, or even suppliers, we were providing the training. Because back from 2005, in 2003, when I first left my corporate career, I was told, go networking. I'd sooner have stuck a hot needle in my eye. The thought, I'm an introvert, so the very idea of going into, into a room of people who I didn't know made me feel really, really uncomfortable. And of course, that proved itself time and time again. I would go to these networking events and just come away feeling really frustrated because I didn't know what to do. So I had a conversation with my coach who, I was blaming him, poor guy. I was saying, look, you're making me go to all of these networking events. I'm not having a great time. I'm not getting referrals. What do I do? Yada, yada. And he said to me, and what I'd also said, I said, if it was me and I was running those events, bearing in mind, in my corporate career, I'd run lots of events. I'd say, I would do this, I would do that, I would do the other. And he said, look, with the skills, resources that you have, just launch your own network then. Now, he was being really blasé. He, was kind of, I just had enough of this woman's whining, quite frankly. He's like, go and launch your own. But I didn't so much take it to heart immediately, but I thought about what he said. And every event that I was going to, I said, what's missing for me? And it was, Duggan, it was something really simple, like, I don't know where to park my car. I don't know if I'm allowed to do certain things, or they would say, prepare an elevator pitch. What was an elevator pitch? There was no clear instruction. So I was thinking about it, and if it was me, I'd improve this way, I'd improve this way, improve this way. So that was it. It was like pull a group of women together of different professions. I wanted a really good mix, and run it wasn't a model then, it was an idea. It was just like, run it like I was hosting one of my corporate events. So I used to run round tables for big IT companies, And the way that I would do it, it was down to the detail. You know, you turn up here this time, that time, then this happens, then that happens, real clear. And they loved it. That was it. It was kind of like they felt safe, they felt comfortable, they weren't frustrated because they knew exactly what would happen when they came in the room. They knew where to park their car. So everything was, you know, easy. They paid all of the things to make it simple. And I had a great experience because, interestingly enough, I was kind of like on the other side. So I wasn't feeling quite such the introvert because I was hosting the event. So I had a good experience of it then. So that was 2005. And we launched four membership groups from that one event. Yeah.
So Jacqueline, tell me what it was like, I guess, firstly, being a woman in a corporate environment, which of course you were, so prior to starting the Athena Network. And also, I suppose, the decision you made around focusing on helping women rather than
women only
people, right?
No.
So it's interesting to me then, because you know, obviously, and that's what I'm interested in, because being a man, you know, you can say we go through life and business and pretty probably blasé about things, you know, and for women it's a totally different experience, and we understand more and more about it now because it's just so much more open and out there than it ever was. But just I just want to understand your experience and how it molded the business model that was the Athena Network.
Yeah, I think I was definitely one of our ideal franchisees, actually, at that time. I felt so disenfranchised with my corporate career. I loved it until I didn't. And the point that I didn't, I was burnt out, I was stressed. It felt like I was doing all the hours. I was a single parent. I'd left my husband in Germany and come back to the UK. And what was really interesting was, even when it came down to pay packages, you know, or negotiating this kind of thing, it'd be like, well, you know, they've got a family to support. It's like, geez, I've got a family to support and there's only me, you know. It's like, so that part of it was really difficult. There was a real gender pay difference, and whilst that was frustrating, I could get over it until I got to the point where it's like the guys were leaving and I was staying, and didn't know the color of my own front door because I was leaving house so early and I was getting home so late. You know, I was spending so much money on childminding so that I didn't have to spend time with my children, which is what I really wanted to do. So I didn't have any, I hadn't, not even any, I didn't have flexibility. I had no flexibility. I didn't feel valued either. It was, any frustrations were met with, well, if you want to keep your job. So I would stay because I really felt I had to. But I come from a military background, so I think I'm pretty tenacious as well. You know, there's a lot of things that I learned through osmosis, but I'd been brought up in a very male-dominated environment. The only time it wasn't was when I went to an all-girls boarding school. And then I came back into the military environment until I was 35. And it was, everything was very focused on what the men wanted. And I didn't realize at the time how frustrated I was with all of that, and saw how disenfranchised women were with the ability. So, for example, you know, you're in a military environment. When I decided to leave my husband, I had 3 months to get out. He could keep the house. I had to go because I was not employed by the military. So I just felt the world just seemed very unfair and unbalanced to me. So I'm not saying it was done consciously. I think over a period of time, I just recognized through action, I was taking out, why am I doing this? Why am I now so determined on focusing on supporting women? And it's honestly only in reflection, Duggan, that I get it now. It was more that I was almost nurturing them in a way that I hadn't been myself. And I wanted to make sure that they didn't have the disadvantages that I personally had, that if they were going to start their own business, they would start it from a position where they could start strong. And that goes for whether they're a member of our organization or if they're a franchisee. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that makes absolute sense, Jacqueline. And tell me about the name then, the Athena Network. How did you decide on the name, and how long did that take?
Not too long, actually. I love mythology. So and names are really important to me. You and I had a conversation just before we started about your name, and I'm, it lights me up when even my dog, has a name that has meaning. So it has like this imprint. I think when you name your business, it has it's part of your branding, about part of who you are. So love mythology, but I wasn't quite sure where I was going to go with that, with the network. I knew it was something network, the something network. So I looked at goddesses because it's quite bonkers when I think about it now. But I'd been to a goddess workshop like a month or so before. I thought, oh, this is really cool. That was kind of like my embodiment with the feminine at the time. Again, very masculine environment. I'd been brought up in a way that probably girls in the UK aren't. And so going to this goddess workshop was a real enlightening moment for me. It was an enlightening weekend. So I thought, oh, goddesses. So I just researched goddesses and the meaning of the goddess, and not all of them are good and kind. And when I looked at Athena, one of my spirit home, if you like, is Cyprus. Both my parents are buried there. My brother is buried there. And I looked at the Greek ones. So it was like, oh, Athena, let's find out a little bit more about her. And what I found out about Athena had everything, apart from the war stuff, it had everything to do with what we are. So Athena is the goddess of crafts, of women. And even when it comes to her being the goddess of war, she only ever goes to war when it's right and just. There's a real reason. She'll fight for what's true. I just kind of like sat with that and embraced it. I just loved it. So, and it's very few of our members call us the Athena Network. It's like, oh, you're going to an Athena meeting. It's kind of like, that's it. Yeah.
Become Athena. No, that makes sense. I like it. And so you started this business independently and of course built it up. What led you to look at franchising the business and growing it that way? And what were your first kind of memories of franchising before you maybe knew what it really was? How did that all happen?
Yeah. So I left my corporate career in 2003 and I set up my training, coaching and development business, Phoenix Potential. I did say I loved mythology. So I'd set that up, and at that time, I think it was very early days there, I was introduced to a business coach at that time, Judith Morgan, who gave me a copy of the E-Myth Revisited, and it blew me away. I was like, I don't even know what this is, but I want it. It's like, that seems amazing. Now, at the time, I couldn't see how I could do it with Phoenix Potential. It felt like it was just me. There was no way that I could replicate what I was doing. And if I was to, it just felt too onerous and complicated because it was the whole coaching. I mean, I would have to train coaches to be coaches. I was like, oh, didn't want to go there. So it was a seed of an idea. But the E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber, I read it, and I've still got my first copy. It's in tatters. And I just loved it. I got tingles of excitement when I read this book. And I just knew that if ever there was an opportunity to create a franchise, that is what I would do. And that's really how the seed was planted way before the business idea was planted. I had no idea that Athena would come into being, but when it started to evolve, it's like, this is it. This is the thing, the model that I want to franchise. Yeah. So which is, I think that's a really big advantage actually, is if you start, and I've talked to quite a lot of people on the podcast, business owners who started their business almost very, very early on, knowing they wanted to franchise it. And I think there's a massive advantage in that, because you already are thinking about systemization.
and
Mm.
setting your business up in the right way for someone else to be able to do what you do. I would say the majority of businesses don't start like that at all. They start for many other reasons. But how long was it after you started the Athena Network, like as your own independent business, before you kind of launched it, I suppose, as a franchise, where you were actually trying to find someone else
That
to?
was 10 months. So it's 10 months,
Really?
and we sold 6 franchises. But before then, we were already, and actually, it was 10 months before we delivered the first training. So it might have been about 9 months before we hosted a discovery day, myself and the team.
Yeah.
And it was very informal. It was in a Pizza Express in Oxbridge, top floor. And just talked about the model and go, hey, if you like it, then we're running a pilot, so you can co-create it with us and see how we go. But coming back to the point that you said about the systemization, I will say that that's one of the key things that I really learned at the beginning. It was like everything I did, I wrote it down. If ever I'm coaching a client now, not for business, but the business may come up, you need to write everything down. I don't care if it looks pretty or not, but open a Google Doc and start, this is how I do my day. I think for me, that's the difference that made the difference, and I still do it. So we hosted different events since, and I will document everything. And it's never pretty the first time. It's just like, if anybody else can read it, it's a miracle. But it was those 9 months. And when I think back to then, the operations manual as it was probably about a 1/4 inch thick if you were to print it.
Yeah.
If you were to print out our operations manual now, which isn't possible because a lot's on video and audio and all of those things, but if you were to print out all of the documents, it probably would be about 2 inches, 3 inches thick, because we've documented everything. And they don't need it all now, but it's there when they need it.
Yeah, and it never stops growing, right? I mean, the operations manual is one of those things that it just, yeah, you're always adding to it, taking away sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because operations manuals are something that we that we focus on. It's a really important part of franchising. It's an important part for a franchisor to have. It's got to link in with the franchise agreement. It's got to be kept updated. People need to understand if it's changed, in terms of franchisees. So there's a lot of like operational processes around what can simply be called an operations manual. But you're right, more and more people are trying to understand how can they, rather than just tick a box with an operations manual and have a 2-inch thick 800-page thing in a binded folder which you can put in a drawer, how can you make that way more adaptable to modern life, which is, how can you get an operations manual onto someone's phone? How can how can someone get into it easily? How can you easily update something? How can you make it more electronic? All of these things. There are so many franchisors looking at that right now. So it's really good to hear that you're obviously been doing that for a while now. And tell me, Jacqueline, how do you manage an operations manual which isn't like what everyone traditionally thinks of an operations manual, which is basically just pages in a folder, and if you update something, you take out page 97 and you put in a new 97 and you burn the old one, and that kind of thing. How do you manage it? Because I think that's probably one of the biggest problems, that a franchisor that might have been going 20 years and it's modern in every other way, but still has an 800-page or maybe 3 800-page operations manuals, and they haven't done anything with it. They've kept it updated and they tick the boxes, but they haven't modernized it. What would your advice be as to how to go about that?
Well, interestingly enough, kind of we struggled along, and I do mean struggled along, for a few years with printed versions. We do the induction training for a new franchisee and proudly present them with this leatherette bound folder with our company logo embossed on it, and all of these in all the little, compartment. You knew they were going to put it in a drawer. I know they put it in drawers, because when it came to resales, they would just present exactly the same thing. No notes, nothing. to, you know, as part of their sell. It's like, have you changed any of the pages? It was like, no. So what we have done, we've morphed over the years, actually, Doug. And when I think about it, we had some web-based solutions, training portals that we could use. Now we have gone full in with G Suite. G Suite works for us. So we have G Suite that we could share, so they can never change the actual one. They can only download or save to their own folder, the most recent one. But we also have a video training portal as well, with videos that are searchable. So if anybody had a problem, then they could type in what the problem was, and then they would find all of the videos that pertain to that. And all of those videos have got the relevant section within the operations manual that they can then reference. That didn't happen overnight for us. One, because the technology wasn't available to us. I think we were using WebEx. I don't even know if WebEx is available now, and it was a really costly solution. So when we had GDPR come in, and there's a bit, like all businesses, we had to go through shredding paperwork that we didn't need. And I looked at the cost of some of the services that we were using, and it would honestly make my heart stop. I said, really, we spent all of that? But there was no other solution at the time. Now, for us, using G Suite really works, and using a training portal on a videos on a platform that serves us really well. We don't have any printed versions now. There is nothing that is printed. We don't even print collaterals. The only collateral that we have that is printed is a business card, and that's only in case somebody goes to an open networking event. But otherwise, it's all digital.
It's all digital now. So no, that's interesting, Jacqueline, and it's a hot topic at the moment. Digitizing or digitalizing, people always argue about which use is best of the word, but digitizing an operations manual. So yeah, well done for having done that, because a lot haven't. I will say.
Well, I wish I could say it's because I am ecologically aware, and I wish I could say it was that, but it was that I genuinely was so fed up with printing things and trying to. And it's the swapping and changing, as you mentioned, remove this page, put this one in. Now it's just really easy. It's just like, see handbook, blah, 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 or module, blah, blah, blah. It's been updated. So download the most recent version. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, so tell me a bit about your network, Jacqueline, and like where you've got up to, what your vision is for the future for that network. Are you still seeking people around parts of the UK, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so when we first launched, it was predominantly London and home counties. That's where we were really based. And our first franchisees were in London and home counties as well. And I'm trying to remember. And then the next one from there was Scotland. So we couldn't have gone further away, really. Well, I'm sure we could, but not in the UK. And that, coincidence, we had somebody who was a member who had come on board locally and had property in Scotland and wanted to be living there at least once a week, every month. So that was our furthest afield. And it's moved around. We've had some challenges. We navigated the financial crisis in 2008. We've navigated COVID and went fully online. And we are in a major growth spurt at the minute. So for that to happen, I needed to recruit a UK sales director, because I couldn't do it on my own, because I worried about the length of time it would, if I took on more franchisees, what was that going to do for the flexibility that I craved and loved in my life? Because I would then have to serve all of them. Well, I'd have to be recruiting all of them. Where in actual fact, the part that I love the best is the coaching, the mentoring, the training, and business operations. It's Athena looks the same primarily as in our meeting agenda, the way that we operate, but in other ways I've created and adjusted over the years. So we're looking now at several other counties where we want to be launching, like Kent and Essex. We do want to be in the Northwest. We have somebody potentially for Scotland. We'd love somebody in Wales and Ireland. And we do have groups in Singapore as well. So that's the next step. Is one of our current franchisees is managing now, or will be managing, the international sales for us as well.
Brilliant. So you've got big aspirations still, Jacqueline.
Yeah. Oh, there's still growth. I mean, there's so many more counties in the UK that we haven't even touched. And I'd love every woman who's in business to have an experience of Athena, even if they just come once and go, well, thank you, that wasn't quite what I wanted. I prefer mixed networking. And that's great. That's absolutely fine. But it's interesting, you know, back in the day, people say, oh yeah, I get it. They can come along and they can cut their teeth on networking in yours. And then when they come out the baby pond, they can come into the big wide world of mixed networking. It isn't that anymore. It's that our members are by choice choosing to network with women. It's a different, I think it's a community. It's not, we're not just a network is a community, arguably, but it's more the community vibe that the members really are buying into. They love being a part of the community.
Yeah. And one thing I'm always interested in hearing about is, in your experience, like what are the big positives you're seeing now for women, and the opportunities that women are getting at all levels? Maybe they're not. I mean, I'm probably quite narrow. You know, I understand what's going on, but I'm not super focused in that area, like lot are. But you obviously do understand that. How are things looking? And let's talk about in the UK, because
there has been huge growth. I was reading a study the other day, and it was saying that seems a long way back, but since 1972, there has been a 3,000% increase on women's entrepreneurship. And I think that is the potential for women now. It's for the potential to either A, set up their own business model, and I love franchising, so I'd encourage them to do that, but to do that, or to invest in a franchise and other, licenses, that kind of thing as well. But I do think that we are leading to a more level playing field in entrepreneurship. And there's my distinction, because I have probably the same as you, Doug, and I have very little idea of what the corporate sector is like anymore, only from hearsay and women that I work with. And honestly, I still think the glass ceiling is there. I still think there is a gender pay gap. And it was a conscious choice for me to leave. So I was really lucky. I could volunteer for redundancy. The company, there was a buyout, so we had the opportunity to do that. And we had to be re-interviewed for our jobs. It was most bizarre. So after my interview, I went up to my desk, I cleared out my desk, and I was leaving. And one of my colleagues said to me, she said, aren't you scared that they're not going to ask you to stay? I said, no, I'm so scared that they're going to ask me to stay. I'm leaving now. While I've got the strength, while I've got the courage, I'm going to take responsibility. And that's what I think the biggest distinction is now. Women are realizing that they have choice. They don't have to stay chained to a particular job or a situation. But that does depend on the environment that they're, I don't mean networking in our context, but networking in their community, the people that they come across who are supportive and give them ideas and things. So I think that's the biggest difference, is entrepreneurship, the growth in entrepreneurship for women. That is now a level playing field. There is nothing that a male entrepreneur can do that I can't. Well, I mean, aside from their skills and expertise, I'm talking about their business growth, the way that they're, I can create as well as a male.
Yeah, no, I'd agree, Jacqueline. I mean, that's what I would say if someone asked me as well. I would say in a corporate environment, in a job market, there's been some improvements, but there's a long way to go. But where I have seen a lot of difference is in especially franchising. And if you want to lump kind of entrepreneurship and franchising together, and you can, then yeah, I think that in the last certainly 6-7 years, but even the last 5 has, it's massively changed. And you're absolutely right. I think it gives women a lot more options. and to be able to leave the jobs where they're not being recognized, they're not being rewarded for what they do, and they're able to actually take control and take things into their own hands. And that's certainly what I've seen franchising offer a lot more. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I love franchising as well, because it helps tap into, when I first started 20 years ago, and I've always been involved in kind of franchise recruitment. It was so strange to see a woman's name making an application for a franchise, or filling a form. In those days, was in the back of a magazine, or by fax, believe it or not. Like 20 years ago.
Believe it, I remember.
I was still receiving faxes, and then inputting that into a very crude database. But yeah, I hardly ever saw a woman's name, and now that's totally different. And of course, it's still male dominated, but it's the difference is becoming narrower, and I would say that's changing every single year, and the options available are what is helping that to happen. So yeah, it helps everyone, and society in general. So it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, we could go down a whole new rabbit hole, and we won't because it's a different conversation for another day. But what I think is one of the other things that I think has made a difference is that finance is available to women now. So you look back at 1972, finance was not available to women. They had to have their husband or their parents or a man co-sign any loan that they wanted, and that never guaranteed the loan. Whereas now for women, they have choice. They have so very many more financial options, and they don't have to rely on anybody else. They can rely on themselves 100%. Yeah.
No,
so
Jacqueline,
I think expanded the franchise network.
No, I think that's a very relevant message, actually. It's not something I immediately think about, but I think it's a really important message that you are absolutely right. Like the lending available to women is the same as available to men now. The credit rating and checks, and it's that has become much more of an even field, and playing field, and also I do think that a lot of institutions now are recognizing that actually it's a bit like driving. Women are less of a risk, in many ways. So in some ways, women actually benefit from being a woman in some of the, which is great. And so, yeah, I think it's really important that because that without money, you can't invest, you can't start a business, you need something. Exactly. So loans and that are really important. So Jacqueline, just kind of getting to the end, I wanted to ask, what so far in your franchising journey, which obviously is still going on, what have you seen as the biggest, in a franchising context, kind of some of the biggest challenges that you've gone through from franchising your business, then taking on pilot franchisees, and then obviously growing a network and supporting them? And which have you seen the biggest challenges, and what would your advice be to any business owner, male or female, that's looking to franchise their business and go down the same route you have?
Yeah, I think for me, growth has probably been the most significant challenge. It's not that I felt incapable of growth. I got scared of growth because I was, the reason I'd set up the business was for more freedom, flexibility, financial security, and it just seemed like growth felt like one of two things. I would have to invest more of my time, more of my energy, and I'd have to lose some of my financial freedom because that would have to pay someone. And I think for me, that has in the past really hindered me a great deal. And I look back and I reflect, think, I could have done more in that area if I'd been willing to invest in recruiting someone. So I think for me, one of my biggest takeaways over the years, should I say, is recruit before you realize you need to. It's like recruit for the business that you plan to have, not for the business that you have right now. And I think that probably would have placed us in more counties by now if I had done that. I didn't. I own that. But so often in business, we get stuck in the machinations of the recruitment and the energy and the resources and tools and everything for now. And we don't look, okay, like now I probably have everything I need, but for me to grow, this is what I need. So yeah, for me, it's that future forecasting, not financially, well, financially as well, but considering who do I need on my team for this to work, because it can't be me. And I do see that happening. I know several franchisors, and I see that happening. They're trying to do everything themselves and they're burning out. So I don't want that. That's what I had. So yeah, that would be that was my biggest challenge, and that's what I would have done and have done recently, have done differently. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it is a real challenge, that, and certainly for new franchisors, planning ahead is really, really difficult when you don't know what's ahead. You don't understand what's ahead. And I think that's why we certainly see a lot of issues come up as that growth starts to happen. Franchisors are, fighting fires all the time, and sometimes that firefighting takes up all the time, and that's not what you want. You cannot run a business like that. And so, it is important to kind of step back and invest in people and processes to allow you to be able to manage those things, in a better way. And so I think that's probably a really good message to end on, Jacqueline, is making sure that people understand, and whilst they may not understand and know what's ahead on the franchising journey because they haven't been there and it's a brand new business, in many, many ways, supporting franchisees is a business they've never been in. Marketing support to franchisees, that's a business they've never been in. Recruiting franchisees, a business they've never really been in. A lot of these things for a new franchisor are really, really hard. But there's always people that have been on that journey before that you can ask. And franchising is a very, I would say, open and welcoming community. You can reach out and ask other franchisors, and you will get really good feedback. And there's a lot of consultancy companies out there who, again, are happy to have a conversation and advise without, charging, or without starting the clock and charging high rates for that advice. And so I would definitely encourage people to kind of plan ahead a bit and make sure that they do what's necessary. So, but Jacqueline, unless there's anything else you want to finish on, then yeah, let's end there.
I do want to add to what you just said, actually, Doug, because what I didn't mention was at the very beginning we did work, or I worked with a consultant, and without working with that consultant, I wouldn't have known what an operations manual looked like. I would have just created a Word document full of words. But to have the structure that was required of an operations manual, and actually to have somebody sit with me and go, okay, and then what did you do? Then what do you do? So really unpick the process, that helped enormously. Legal support. So these are all the things that were invested in at that time. I didn't write the franchise agreement myself. It was written by a franchising specialist, or a solicitor who specialized in franchising. I did have input because I didn't understand the first agreement myself so much. So is there any way we can make it simple? And that again goes back to what I've ended with and what I started with. Invest in the business that you want to create in the future, as opposed to where you see yourself right now. And that's in franchising and in life. So I do think it's really important to work with a consultant. It can seem, for somebody who's just starting a business, that there's so much time going to be such. I did get frustrated. I was like, oh, we've been through all of this. Why do I need to go through it again? And now I can, with a great deal of gratitude, look back and think, I'm so glad that was an investment that was made at the beginning. We couldn't have been here nearly 19 years later if we hadn't worked with a franchise consultant.
No, you're giving a good name to franchise consultants, Jacqueline.
We genuinely could not have done it. Couldn't have done it.
Yeah. No, thanks. Well, thanks so much for that. And Jacqueline, look, it's been a real pleasure, and hopefully we'll bump into you at some franchise event in the future.
I would love that. Thank you.
Cheers for now. Have a good day. Bye.